You've been told to eat less and move more, but your body just won't cooperate. Every diet you try leaves you hungry, tired, and right back where you started. What if the problem isn't your willpower, but the fact that you're eating foods that keep your insulin sky high, trapping you in a cycle where fat loss is literally impossible? Hey everyone, I'm Dr. James Richardson, a nutritionist who helps people balance their blood sugar, improve their metabolic health, and understand their bodies on a deeper level. If you caught my last video on insulin resistance symptoms, you know exactly why your body refuses to burn fat when insulin levels stay chronically elevated. Today, we're going to solve that problem. I'm going to show you exactly which foods reverse insulin resistance, which ones make it worse, and how to structure your eating to finally break free from this metabolic trap. Before we get into the specifics, I need to address the biggest misconception that keeps people stuck. Most people think that as long as they're eating healthy foods and watching their portions, they should be fine. They'll have whole grain toast for breakfast because it's better than white bread. They'll snack on fruit because it's natural. They'll have a low-fat yogurt because fat is bad, right? And then they wonder why they're still struggling with their weight, still exhausted all the time, still craving sugar every few hours. Here's what you need to understand. When you have insulin resistance, it's not about eating healthy in the general sense. It's about eating in a way that keeps your insulin low. And many foods that are considered healthy, even foods that are nutritious and whole, will still spike your blood sugar and insulin if you're not careful about how and when you eat them. The truth is, your body doesn't care about calories the way we've been taught. Your body cares about hormones, specifically insulin. When insulin is high, you store fat. When insulin is low, you burn fat. It's that simple. You could eat 2,000 calories of steak, eggs, and avocados, and your insulin would barely budge. You'd burn fat all day long. But if you eat 2,000 calories of bread, pasta, and fruit juice, your insulin would be through the roof, and you'd store every bit of excess energy as fat, even though the calorie count is identical. This is why calorie counting fails so spectacularly for people with insulin resistance. You're playing the wrong game entirely. Let me break down what actually happens when you eat different types of food, because understanding this will completely change how you approach eating. When you eat protein, like a piece of chicken or some eggs, your body breaks it down into amino acids. These amino acids are used to build and repair tissues, make enzymes and hormones, and support virtually every function in your body. Protein does cause a small insulin response, but it's minimal, and it's accompanied by the release of another hormone called glucagon, which actually helps stabilize blood sugar. The net effect is that protein keeps you full, maintains your muscle mass, and has very little impact on fat storage. This is why protein should be the foundation of every single meal when you're trying to reverse insulin resistance. Now, let's talk about fat. For decades, we've been told that dietary fat makes you fat and clogs your arteries. This is one of the most damaging lies in nutrition history. Fat is actually the macronutrient that has the least impact on insulin. When you eat fat, whether it's from avocados, olive oil, butter, or fatty fish, it doesn't raise your blood sugar at all. Zero. Your insulin barely moves. Fat also sends powerful satiety signals to your brain, telling you that you're satisfied and don't need to eat more. This is why you can eat a meal with plenty of healthy fats and feel full for hours, while a low-fat, high-carb meal leaves you hungry again in 90 minutes. Fat is not your enemy. Fat is actually your ally, when you're trying to reverse insulin resistance, as long as you're choosing the right types of fats, which we'll get into. Carbohydrates are where things get tricky. Not all carbs are created equal, and this is where most people get confused. When you eat carbohydrates, your body breaks them down into glucose, which enters your bloodstream. The speed at which this happens and the amount of glucose released determines how much insulin your pancreas needs to produce. Simple, refined carbohydrates like white bread, white rice, pasta, crackers, chips, cookies, and anything made with flour or sugar, these break down incredibly quickly. Within minutes, you get a massive surge of glucose flooding your bloodstream. Your pancreas sees this and panics, dumping a huge amount of insulin to deal with the glucose overload. This is the insulin spike that's destroying your metabolic health. But even whole grain carbohydrates, which are supposedly healthier, still break down into glucose. Yes, they have more fiber, which slows the absorption slightly, but you're still getting a significant blood sugar and insulin response. A bowl of brown rice or a slice of whole wheat bread will absolutely spike your insulin if you have insulin resistance. This doesn't mean you can never eat carbohydrates again, but it does mean you need to be extremely strategic about which carbs you eat, how much you eat, and when you eat them. For most people trying to reverse insulin resistance, keeping carbohydrates very low, at least initially, is essential. Now let's talk about the specific foods that actively help reverse insulin resistance. These are foods that either have minimal impact on insulin, or foods that actually improve your cell's sensitivity to insulin over time. First and foremost, you need to be eating plenty of high-quality animal proteins. This includes things like eggs, which are probably the most perfect food for insulin resistance. Eggs are loaded with protein, healthy fats, and virtually every vitamin and mineral your body needs except vitamin C. They don't spike your blood sugar at all. Eat them however you like. Scrambled, fried in butter, hard-boiled, made into an omelet with vegetables. Eggs should be a staple. Fatty fish like salmon, sardines, mackerel, and herring are incredible for insulin resistance. They provide high-quality protein, and they're loaded with omega-3 fatty acids, specifically EPA and DHA, which reduce inflammation and improve insulin sensitivity. Remember, inflammation is one of the major drivers of insulin resistance, so getting plenty of omega-3s is crucial. If you don't like fish, you're missing out on one of the most powerful tools for reversing insulin resistance. Even just 2 or 3 servings a week makes a significant difference. Canned sardines and canned salmon are cheap, convenient options if fresh fish isn't accessible to you. Grass-fed beef, lamb, and other red meats are excellent choices. I know red meat has been demonized, but the research doesn't support the fear-mongering. Red meat provides highly bioavailable protein, iron, zinc, B vitamins, and if it's from grass-fed animals, it also contains omega-3s and CLA, a fatty acid that may help with fat loss. The key is quality. Choose grass-fed and grass-finished when possible, and don't be afraid of fattier cuts. That fat is going to keep you satisfied and won't spike your insulin. Chicken, turkey, pork, and other lean meats are great too, though you'll want to add some fat to them since they're naturally lean. Cook your chicken thighs instead of chicken breasts. Leave the skin on. Add butter or olive oil. Don't fall into the trap of eating dry, flavorless, skinless chicken breast because you think it's healthier. It's not. You need adequate fat to feel satisfied and to keep your insulin stable. Now let's talk about vegetables. Non-starchy vegetables should be a huge part of your diet. These are foods like leafy greens, spinach, kale, arugula, lettuce, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, asparagus, zucchini, peppers, mushrooms, cucumbers, celery, and green beans. These vegetables are loaded with fiber, vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients that reduce inflammation and support overall health. They have minimal impact on blood sugar because they're mostly water and fiber, with very little digestible carbohydrate. You can eat these vegetables in large quantities without worrying about insulin spikes. Fill half your plate with these at every meal. Cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts deserve special mention because they contain compounds that support liver detoxification. Remember, a healthy liver is crucial for reversing insulin resistance because your liver is the main organ responsible for processing glucose and regulating blood sugar. Supporting your liver function with these vegetables is incredibly beneficial. Leafy greens are also important because they're rich in magnesium, and magnesium is a mineral that most people are deficient in. Magnesium is involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions in your body, including glucose metabolism and insulin signaling. When you're deficient in magnesium, your cells don't respond to insulin properly. Getting plenty of leafy greens, along with other magnesium-rich foods like pumpkin seeds, almonds, and dark chocolate, can significantly improve insulin sensitivity. Now, what about starchy vegetables like potatoes, sweet potatoes, and winter squashes? These are more controversial. They do contain more digestible carbohydrate than non-starchy vegetables, which means they will raise your blood sugar and insulin. However, they're still whole foods with fiber, vitamins, and minerals. My recommendation is to avoid them entirely in the initial phase when you're working to reverse insulin resistance, probably for the first few months. Once your insulin sensitivity has improved, you can experiment with adding small amounts of these foods back in, especially around your workouts when your muscles are primed to absorb glucose. But they shouldn't be a staple, and you need to be honest with yourself about whether you can tolerate them without triggering cravings or blood sugar issues. Let's talk about healthy fats in more detail, because this is where you can really leverage food to your advantage. Avocados are phenomenal. They're rich in monounsaturated fats, fiber, potassium, and various other nutrients. They keep you full, they taste great, and they have virtually no impact on blood sugar. Eat half an avocado with your eggs in the morning. Add avocado to your salads, or just eat it with a spoon straight from the skin with some salt and lime juice. Olives and olive oil are staples of the Mediterranean diet, which has been shown to improve insulin sensitivity and reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes. Extra virgin olive oil is rich in polyphenols, which are antioxidants that reduce inflammation. Use it generously on salads. Drizzle it over cooked vegetables, or use it for low-heat cooking. Don't be afraid to use a lot. Fat is not making you fat. Chronically elevated insulin is making you fat. Coconut oil and MCT oil are interesting because they contain medium-chain triglycerides, which are fats that your body can use very quickly for energy. They're absorbed differently than other fats and can actually increase your metabolic rate slightly. Coconut oil is great for cooking at high heat, and MCT oil can be added to coffee or smoothies for a quick energy boost. Nuts and seeds are nutrient-dense sources of healthy fats, protein, and fiber. Almonds, walnuts, pecans, macadamia nuts, Brazil nuts, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, chia seeds, and flax seeds are all excellent choices. They make great snacks and can be added to meals for extra nutrition and satiety. Just be mindful of portions, because nuts are calorie-dense and it's easy to overeat them. A small handful is plenty. Butter and ghee from grass-fed cows are traditional fats that have been wrongly vilified. They contain fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K, as well as beneficial fatty acids like butyrate, which supports gut health. Don't be afraid to cook with butter or add it to your vegetables. It makes food taste amazing and keeps you satisfied. Now let's address dairy, which is a complicated topic. Full-fat dairy products like heavy cream, cheese, and Greek yogurt can be part of a diet that reverses insulin resistance. But there are some caveats. Dairy does cause an insulin response even though it doesn't raise blood sugar much. This is because of the milk proteins, particularly whey, which are highly insulinogenic. For some people, this isn't a problem. For others, especially those with severe insulin resistance, dairy can stall progress. My recommendation is to keep dairy to moderate amounts and focus on the fattier versions. Full-fat Greek yogurt is better than low-fat. Heavy cream in your coffee is fine. Cheese as part of a meal is okay. But don't make dairy the centerpiece of your diet, and pay attention to how your body responds. If you're not losing weight or your cravings aren't improving, try cutting out dairy for a few weeks and see what happens. What about fruit? This is where I'm going to lose some of you, because fruit has this health halo around it. It's natural. It's packed with vitamins. It must be good for you, right? The problem is that fruit is essentially nature's candy. It contains fructose, a type of sugar that's particularly problematic for insulin resistance. Fructose is metabolized primarily in your liver, and when you consume too much of it, your liver converts it to fat through that process of de novo lipogenesis I mentioned in my last video. This contributes to fatty liver disease, which worsens insulin resistance. Fruit also causes blood sugar spikes, especially tropical fruits like bananas, mangoes, pineapple, and grapes, or dried fruits which are like little sugar bombs. Does this mean you can never eat fruit again? No, but it does mean you need to be strategic. Berries are the best choice because they're lower in sugar and higher in fiber and antioxidants. A small handful of blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, or blackberries is fine occasionally, especially if you eat them with some fat or protein to blunt the insulin response. But bananas, apples, oranges, and especially fruit juice should be completely off the table when you're trying to reverse insulin resistance. Fruit juice is one of the worst things you can consume. It's liquid sugar without any of the fiber that would slow down absorption. It spikes your blood sugar and insulin faster than eating candy. Let's talk about beverages, because what you drink matters just as much as what you eat. Water should be your primary beverage. Plain water, sparkling water, water with lemon or lime, whatever makes you happy. Hydration is important for every metabolic process in your body. Coffee and tea are also excellent choices. Black coffee has been shown in multiple studies to improve insulin sensitivity, probably because of the polyphenols and other beneficial compounds in coffee. Green tea, black tea, and herbal teas are all great. Just don't add sugar or sweetened creamers. If you need to add something to your coffee, use heavy cream or a splash of unsweetened almond milk. What about artificial sweeteners and zero-calorie drinks? This is controversial. Some artificial sweeteners may trigger an insulin response, even though they don't contain calories or raise blood sugar directly. The evidence is mixed, and it seems to vary by individual and by type of sweetener. Stevia and monk fruit seem to be the safest options if you need something sweet. Aspartame, sucralose, and other artificial sweeteners are more questionable. My general advice is to wean yourself off the need for sweet-tasting things altogether. Your taste buds will adapt within a few weeks, and you'll find that you don't crave sweetness anymore. But if you absolutely need a diet soda occasionally to stay sane, it's probably not the end of the world. Just don't make it a daily habit. Alcohol is another tricky subject. Alcohol itself doesn't contain much sugar or carbohydrate in the case of spirits like vodka, whiskey, or gin. However, alcohol consumption can worsen insulin resistance through multiple mechanisms. It interferes with your liver's ability to regulate blood sugar. It disrupts your sleep, which we know worsens insulin resistance. It lowers your inhibitions, making you more likely to eat foods you shouldn't. And it's often mixed with sugary beverages. If you're serious about reversing insulin resistance, minimizing alcohol is a good idea, at least during the initial healing phase. If you do drink, stick to dry wine or spirits mixed with soda water, and keep it to special occasions. Now, I want to talk about some specific foods and nutrients that have been shown in research to actively improve insulin sensitivity beyond just keeping insulin low. Cinnamon is one of them. Studies have shown that cinnamon can improve insulin sensitivity and lower blood sugar levels. The mechanism isn't entirely clear, but it seems to improve the way your cells respond to insulin. Adding a teaspoon of cinnamon to your coffee, tea, or yogurt is an easy way to get this benefit. Make sure you're using Ceylon cinnamon, not cassia cinnamon, because cassia contains higher levels of coumarin, a compound that can be harmful in large amounts. Apple cider vinegar is another one. Taking a tablespoon or two of apple cider vinegar before meals has been shown to blunt the blood sugar spike from that meal. It seems to work by slowing down gastric emptying and improving insulin sensitivity. Some people find it too harsh on their stomach, so you can dilute it in water. It's not a magic bullet, but it's a simple, cheap intervention that can help. Ginger and turmeric are powerful anti-inflammatory spices that may improve insulin sensitivity by reducing the inflammation that interferes with insulin signaling. You can use fresh ginger and turmeric in cooking, drink ginger tea, or take them as supplements. If supplementing with turmeric, make sure it contains black pepper or piperine, which dramatically increases the absorption of curcumin, the active compound in turmeric. Fermented foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, pickles, and kefir support gut health by providing beneficial bacteria. Your gut microbiome plays a significant role in metabolic health, and an imbalanced gut can contribute to insulin resistance and inflammation. Including fermented foods regularly can help restore a healthy gut environment. Just make sure you're choosing fermented foods that don't contain added sugar, and if you're using kefir, go for the unsweetened version. Now let's get into the practical side. How do you actually structure your eating to reverse insulin resistance? This is where the rubber meets the road. You can know all the theory in the world, but if you don't have a clear plan for what to eat and when, you're going to struggle. Let me give you a step-by-step approach that works. Step 1. Build every meal around protein. Your first priority with any meal is to get adequate protein. This means at least 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal, more if you're larger or very active. What does this look like in real food? 3 or 4 eggs, a palm-sized piece of meat or fish, a can of sardines, a large chicken breast. Protein should take up about 1/4 to 1/3 of your plate. This ensures you're maintaining muscle mass, staying full between meals, and minimizing the insulin response compared to a carb-heavy meal. Step 2. Add plenty of non-starchy vegetables. Fill at least half your plate with vegetables like the ones I mentioned earlier. These provide fiber, nutrients, and volume without spiking your insulin. Don't just steam plain vegetables and suffer through them. Make them delicious. Roast them with olive oil and garlic. Sauté them in butter with herbs. Make a big salad with a variety of colorful vegetables and a dressing made with olive oil and vinegar. The goal is to actually enjoy eating these foods, so you'll stick with it long term. Step 3. Include healthy fats with every meal. Add avocado to your eggs. Put olive oil on your salad. Cook your meat in butter or coconut oil. Snack on a handful of nuts. Fat is what's going to keep you satisfied for hours and prevent the between-meal hunger and cravings that derail so many people. Don't be stingy with fat. Use enough that your food tastes good and you feel genuinely satisfied after eating. Step 4. Minimize or eliminate added carbohydrates, especially in the beginning. This means no bread, no pasta, no rice, no potatoes, no tortillas, no crackers, no cereal, no oatmeal. I know this sounds extreme, and it is a significant change from how most people eat. But here's the thing. You can't reverse insulin resistance while continuing to eat the foods that caused it. Your body needs a break from the constant carbohydrate and insulin assault. Give yourself at least 8 to 12 weeks of very low carbohydrate eating. For most people, this means staying under 50 grams of total carbohydrates per day, and ideally under 30 grams. The carbs you do eat should come primarily from non-starchy vegetables. After this initial period, once your insulin sensitivity has improved, you can experiment with adding back small amounts of whole food carbohydrates, like sweet potatoes or berries, and see how your body responds. But many people find they feel so much better eating this way that they just naturally continue with minimal carbs long term. Your body doesn't actually need dietary carbohydrates. You have all the glucose you need from the process of gluconeogenesis, where your liver makes glucose from protein and glycerol. This is one of the most misunderstood concepts in nutrition. You don't need to eat carbs to have energy or for your brain to function. Your body is perfectly capable of making what it needs. Step 5. Practice time-restricted eating. We talked about this in the last video, but it bears repeating because it's so powerful. Compress your eating window to 8 to 10 hours per day, which means you're fasting for 14 to 16 hours. For most people, this looks like skipping breakfast and having your first meal around noon or 1 p.m., then finishing eating by 8 or 9 p.m. During the fasting period, you can have water, black coffee, or unsweetened tea. This extended fasting period gives your insulin a chance to drop to baseline levels, which allows your cells to become more sensitive to it. It also forces your body to burn fat for fuel during the fasting period, since you're not constantly providing glucose from food. Some people worry that skipping breakfast is unhealthy or that they'll be starving. In my experience, the opposite is true. Once you adapt to this eating pattern, which usually takes a few days to a week, you'll find that you're not hungry in the morning. Your energy is stable, your mind is clear, and you're not obsessing about food every 2 hours. The hunger and cravings that made you feel like you needed to eat constantly were driven by unstable blood sugar and high insulin. Once you stabilize those, the constant hunger disappears. Step 6. Prioritize nutrient density over empty calories. Every bite of food you take should be contributing something valuable to your body. This means choosing foods that are rich in vitamins, minerals, and other beneficial compounds, not just calories. Organ meats, like liver, are incredibly nutrient-dense and can significantly improve your nutritional status if you can get past any squeamishness about eating them. Shellfish, like oysters and mussels, are packed with zinc, selenium, and other minerals. Dark leafy greens provide folate, magnesium, and countless phytonutrients. Eggs from pasture-raised chickens have more omega-3s and vitamins than conventional eggs. Wild-caught fish is superior to farmed. Grass-fed beef has a better fatty acid profile than grain-fed. Quality matters. This doesn't mean you need to buy the most expensive version of everything or shop exclusively at fancy health food stores. But when you have the option and can afford it, choosing higher quality versions of the foods you're already eating will give you better results. And sometimes, the most nutrient-dense foods are actually the cheapest. A can of sardines costs less than $2 and provides more nutrition than a lot of expensive supplements. Chicken liver is dirt cheap and might be the most nutritious food on the planet. Eggs are still one of the best deals in the grocery store. Step 7. Plan and prepare your food in advance. This is the difference between success and failure for most people. If you wait until you're hungry to figure out what to eat, you're going to make poor choices. You'll grab whatever's convenient, which is usually not what you should be eating. Instead, set aside time once or twice a week to plan your meals, shop for ingredients, and do some batch cooking. Hard-boil a dozen eggs for quick snacks or breakfast. Grill several pounds of chicken thighs or ground beef that you can use in different meals throughout the week. Chop vegetables and store them in containers so they're ready to cook. Make a big batch of bone broth that you can use for soups or just drink by the cup. Having food ready to go removes the decision fatigue and the temptation to order takeout or grab something processed. It also makes it much easier to stick with your plan when life gets busy or stressful. You don't need to be a master chef or spend hours in the kitchen every day. Simple, repetitive meals are perfectly fine. Eggs and vegetables for one meal, meat and salad for another, fish and roasted vegetables for dinner. You don't need variety at every meal. You need consistency and convenience. Now, let me address some common obstacles and questions that come up when people start eating this way. The first one is usually about cost. People assume that eating high-quality protein and lots of fresh vegetables is expensive. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. Eggs are cheap. Canned fish is cheap. Chicken thighs and ground beef are affordable. Frozen vegetables are just as nutritious as fresh, and often cheaper. You can also save money by eating less frequently. When you're eating 2 or 3 times a day instead of 6, you're buying less food overall. And think about what you're not spending money on anymore. No more processed snacks, no soda, no fast food runs. No constant coffee shop visits for sugary drinks. For most people, the total food budget doesn't actually go up. It just shifts to different types of food. Another concern is social situations and eating out. How do you stick to this way of eating when you're at a restaurant or someone else's house? It's actually easier than you think. Most restaurants will accommodate reasonable requests. Order a steak or fish with extra vegetables instead of the potato or rice. Get a bunless burger with a side salad. Ask for eggs and bacon without the toast. Skip the bread basket. Don't be embarrassed to ask for what you need. You're the customer, and restaurants want your business. At social gatherings, eat before you go so you're not starving and tempted by everything. Bring a dish that fits your way of eating so you know there's at least one thing you can have. And if you end up eating something that's not ideal, don't spiral into guilt and self-punishment. Just get back on track with your next meal. Some people worry about fiber and digestive issues. They've been told they need whole grains for fiber and that eating a lot of meat will cause constipation. In reality, most people get plenty of fiber from vegetables, and many find that their digestion actually improves when they remove grains and processed foods. Bloating, gas, and irregular bowel movements often resolve on a low-carb, whole foods diet. If you are experiencing constipation, make sure you're drinking enough water, eating plenty of vegetables, and getting adequate fat. Magnesium supplementation can also help, but for most people, the transition is smooth once they get past the first few days of adaptation. Speaking of adaptation, let's talk about what to expect in the first week or two. Your body has been running primarily on glucose for probably your entire life. When you suddenly remove most carbohydrates, your body needs time to upregulate the enzymes and pathways needed to efficiently burn fat for fuel. During this transition period, which usually lasts 3 to 5 days. You might feel tired, foggy, irritable, or experience headaches. This is sometimes called the low-carb flu or keto flu, though it's not actually the flu. It's just your body adapting to a new fuel source. The good news is that it's temporary, and you can minimize the symptoms by staying well hydrated and making sure you're getting enough electrolytes, especially sodium. When your insulin drops, your kidneys release sodium and water. This is why people often lose several pounds of water weight in the first few days of low-carb eating. But that sodium loss can cause the fatigue and headaches. Don't be afraid to salt your food generously and even drink some broth or add a pinch of salt to your water. Once you get through this adaptation period, your energy will rebound and usually ends up higher than it was before, because you're no longer riding the blood sugar roller coaster. After a few weeks on this way of eating, most people report dramatic improvements. Energy levels stabilize throughout the day. The constant hunger and cravings disappear. Mental clarity improves. Sleep gets better. Inflammation markers drop. And yes, the weight starts coming off, especially from the midsection. But more importantly, you're healing your metabolism. Your cells are becoming sensitive to insulin again. Your liver is clearing out fat and functioning properly. Your muscle mass is being preserved or even increased if you're strength training. You're setting yourself up for long-term health, not just quick weight loss that won't last. I also want to emphasize that this isn't an all-or-nothing approach. Yes, being strict, especially in the beginning, will give you faster and better results. But real life is messy, and perfection isn't sustainable. If you have a meal that doesn't fit the plan, if you eat something you wish you hadn't, if you go on vacation and make different choices, that's okay. What matters is the overall pattern, not individual meals. Get right back to eating in a way that supports your insulin sensitivity with your next meal. Don't use one deviation as an excuse to give up entirely. Progress, not perfection, is the goal. It's also important to periodically reassess and adjust based on your results and how you feel. After a few months of low-carb eating, you might find that you can tolerate some starchy vegetables or small amounts of fruit without issues. Your insulin sensitivity has improved, so your body can handle those foods better now. Or you might find that you feel best staying very low-carb indefinitely. There's no universal prescription. You need to pay attention to your own body's signals. Are you maintaining your weight loss? Is your energy stable? Are cravings staying away? Is your lab work continuing to improve? These are the metrics that matter, not some arbitrary rule about how many carbs you should or shouldn't eat. One thing I can't stress enough is the importance of resistance training alongside these dietary changes. We talked about this in the last video, but it's worth repeating. Building and maintaining muscle mass is one of the most powerful things you can do for insulin sensitivity. Muscle tissue is metabologically active and acts like a sponge for glucose. The more muscle you have, and the more you use it, the better your body handles carbohydrates when you do eat them. You don't need to become a bodybuilder, but 2 or 3 sessions per week of lifting weights or doing bodyweight exercises will accelerate your progress dramatically. Plus, as you lose fat, you want to make sure you're not losing muscle along with it. Resistance training preserves muscle mass and ensures that the weight you're losing is actually fat. Walking is also hugely beneficial, especially after meals. A 20 to 30-minute walk after dinner can lower your post-meal blood sugar spike by 20 to 30%. That's a significant reduction in the insulin your body needs to produce. And it requires no special equipment, no gym membership, no elaborate planning. Just put on your shoes and go for a walk. If you can't do it after every meal, at least try to walk after your largest meal of the day. Over time, these small habits compound into major health improvements. Let me also address supplements briefly, because people often ask if they need to take anything. Food should always be your primary source of nutrition. But there are a few supplements that can support your efforts to reverse insulin resistance. We covered some of these in the last video, but I'll mention them again. Magnesium is important because deficiency is common and it plays a direct role in insulin sensitivity. Omega-3 fish oil can help if you're not eating fatty fish regularly. Vitamin D is crucial if you're not getting sun exposure. Berberine has strong evidence for improving insulin sensitivity. And chromium picolinate may help, though the evidence is weaker. These aren't necessary, but they can give you an extra boost, especially if you have specific deficiencies. What about cheat meals or carb refeeds? Some diet approaches incorporate planned higher carb days to boost leptin and thyroid hormones, or to provide a psychological break from restriction. My take on this is that it depends on where you are in your journey. If you're in the initial phase of reversing insulin resistance and you're still struggling with cravings and hunger, cheat meals are probably a bad idea. They'll spike your insulin, potentially trigger binge eating, and set back your progress. Once you've been eating this way for several months and your insulin sensitivity has significantly improved, then you might experiment with occasionally having some higher carb foods, especially around intense workouts when your muscles can handle the glucose load. But be honest with yourself about whether you can handle it without spiraling. For some people, it's better to just stay consistent and not open that door at all. The psychological component of changing your eating habits can't be overlooked. Food is deeply emotional for most people. It's tied to comfort, celebration, stress relief, and social connection. When you change what you eat, you're not just changing your diet. You're changing your relationship with food and often your social dynamics. Some people in your life might not understand or might even feel threatened by your changes. They might make comments about your food choices or pressure you to eat things you're trying to avoid. This can be really challenging, especially if these are people you care about. Remember that you don't owe anyone an explanation for how you choose to nourish your body. You're making these changes for your health, and that's what matters. Surround yourself with people who support you, or at least find online communities of people who are on a similar journey and understand what you're going through. It's also worth examining your own beliefs and emotions around food. Do you use food as a reward or to cope with stress? Do you eat when you're bored or lonely? Are there specific trigger foods that you can't seem to control yourself around? Understanding these patterns is important because reversing insulin resistance is as much about addressing the psychological and emotional aspects of eating as it is about the biological ones. If you find that you're struggling with emotional eating or disordered eating patterns, working with a therapist or counselor who specializes in this area can be incredibly helpful. Let me paint a picture of what your typical day might look like once you've adopted this way of eating and it's become your new normal. You wake up feeling refreshed. You don't need to eat immediately because you're not experiencing the blood sugar crash that used to wake you up hungry. You have your coffee, maybe with a splash of heavy cream, and you go about your morning. Maybe you get some exercise in, or you work, or you take care of whatever needs to be done. Around noon or 1 p.m., you have your first meal. It might be a 3-egg omelet cooked in butter with spinach, mushrooms, and cheese, plus half an avocado on the side. Or maybe it's a big salad with mixed greens, grilled chicken, olives, cucumbers, tomatoes, and a dressing made with olive oil and lemon juice. You feel satisfied but not stuffed. You go about your afternoon with steady energy, no mid-afternoon slump, no desperate need for a snack or caffeine. You're focused and productive. You might have some nuts or a piece of cheese if you get hungry, but often you don't need anything between meals because your blood sugar is stable. For dinner, you might have a piece of salmon with roasted broccoli and cauliflower cooked in olive oil and garlic, or a grass-fed burger patty topped with sautéed mushrooms and onions served over a bed of mixed greens, or a slow-cooked pot roast with carrots and a side of sautéed green beans. After dinner, you're done eating. You're not prowling the kitchen looking for dessert or snacks. You're satisfied. You might go for a walk, spend time with family, work on a hobby, whatever you enjoy. You sleep well because your blood sugar isn't spiking and crashing throughout the night. You wake up the next day and do it again. It becomes effortless because you're no longer fighting against your biology. Your hunger hormones are regulated. Your insulin is doing its job properly. Your body is functioning the way it's supposed to. Over weeks and months, you notice changes beyond just the scale. Your clothes fit better, especially around your waist. Your face looks less puffy. Your skin might clear up. People start commenting that you look different, healthier, more vibrant. Your lab work shows improvements. Lower fasting glucose, lower A1C, better lipid panel, reduced inflammation markers. Maybe you're able to reduce or eliminate medications you've been taking for blood sugar, blood pressure, or other metabolic issues. Your doctor is impressed and asks what you've been doing. You have more energy to play with your kids or grandkids, to pursue activities you'd given up on, to simply enjoy life without being held back by your health. This is what's possible when you reverse insulin resistance. It's not just about weight loss, though that's certainly a welcome benefit. It's about reclaiming your health, your vitality, your quality of life. It's about breaking free from the prison of insulin resistance that's been controlling your body and your life. And the amazing thing is that you have the power to do this. You don't need expensive medications or elaborate treatments. You just need to change what you're putting on your plate and give your body the time and support it needs to heal. I know this is a lot of information, and implementing all of it at once can feel overwhelming. Start with 1 or 2 changes that feel manageable to you. Maybe that's just cutting out sugar and refined carbs, or maybe it's adding protein to every meal, or implementing time-restricted eating. Pick something, commit to it for a week, and see how you feel. Then, add another change. Layer these habits on top of each other gradually, and before you know it, you'll have completely transformed your diet and your health, without it feeling like some massive, overwhelming overhaul that you can't sustain. Remember, you didn't develop insulin resistance overnight, and you won't reverse it overnight either. But every single meal that supports your insulin sensitivity is a step in the right direction. Every day that you keep your insulin low is allowing your cells to heal and become more sensitive. Every week that you stick with this way of eating is bringing you closer to metabolic health. Be patient with yourself. Trust the process, and know that your body wants to heal. It's designed to heal. You just have to remove the obstacles and give it what it needs. If you found this helpful and you want to understand more about the underlying mechanisms of insulin resistance and why your body has been struggling, go check out my previous video on insulin resistance symptoms, where I break down exactly what's happening in your cells and why traditional weight loss advice doesn't work when you have this condition. Understanding the why makes it so much easier to stick with the what. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.